Before I start to talk about how should we teach in 21st century up till 100 years from now, let me make a short introduction about myself. I'm an economist and I'm as well an expert in education science. This makes special conditions for me to talk about this subject. So let me give you an idea when we are studying something in economic environment. We will study macroeconomic evolution, sectorial tendency and evolution, organization tendencies and is its evolution. And this means that we have a general idea of what is over us and what is inside our organization. As well, we normally study what is called a quantic scenario, which means that something that can happen which is not really related what we are involving directly. But if we talk about education science in the next century, we will reflect about civilization evolution, the education methods and techniques, political lines for education, and a quantic scenario, as I mentioned you. So, what I have to tell you, it's a reminding that in 1993, Samuel Huntington started to talk about the clash of civilizations. And he mentioned that in the next future, one important thing that could happen, it was a big clash of civilizations, which means that between the Western civilization and the African civilization, Muslim civilization, South American civilization, and North American civilizations. This gives us a big reflection about what it will be happening in the future. In the present situation, we are facing a huge refugees migration. And this reminds me what happens, let's say, in the 4th century, the big migrations to the Roman Empire. And what happens out of this? Out of this, it happens that the Roman Empire was the end of Western Roman Empire and the starting of 1,000 years of Dark Ages, Middle Age. Another thing happens, let's say, in 1453. It was the end of Constantinople, the end of Eastern Roman Empire. But in that moment, it was more opening a window to the Renaissance. So these things means that what it was really Renaissance. Renaissance was, let's say, from papyrus to paper, a new way of writing, a new way of printing, and this was the Gutenberg printing machine, and a new way of searching for ancient culture in Mediterranean environment. Nowadays, maybe we are having as well a new Renaissance process. We have a new way of writing, which is the digital writing. We have a new way of diffusing information, the web, the internet. And as well, we are looking for the global culture in our planet. This means that we have two enormous alternatives in front of us. And these alternatives are dark ages or a new renaissance. These are important alternatives that we have in front of us, and we have to be careful on managing all these important situations. today. About education. Education was, let's say, evolving since Socrates and Aristotle with a very, very slow process up till last century. But in parallel, another evolution was happening. And this evolution was the distance teaching and learning. This teaching and learning have several stages. And in education process, the technology was evolving very much. Let's say in 70 years, we have evolved for a room computer for to tiny computers with enormous potential. But today, we have not only e-learning. We have, let's say, in the e-learning process, we have three stages. It was e-learning 1.0 with the constructivist process. But students should study by themselves. After a B-learning process, which was presence and distance, interactivity with Stephen Downes and O'Reilly with the Web 2.0, and mobility connectivism from George Simmons, which means a new format of interactivity, presence and synchronous interactivity. But not only that, B-learning has changed. Today, B-learning is asynchronous on demand or synchronous in presence or distance. This is an enormous evolution, but in 2001, Rosenberg told us that in the future we will have a more radical revolution than the e-learning. It will be the disappearing of the E. We will have just learning because everything will be, let's say, learning. But in fact, what we have today is a new B-learning evolution. And this B-learning evolution means that if we have B-learning, we should have B teaching and B teachers. And this is an enormous challenge for the next decades. But we have, in 2 decades, we have tried to create knowledge and information society, connecting cultures, countries, and civilizations in real time. But in fact, what happened? We have created in 2 decades an acknowledge and disinformation society, which means huge quantities of information and only connecting cultures and countries and civilizations in real time. Up till now, most of the teachers has not been shown possibility and for working with all these new methodologies and new technologies. But in the next decades, we feel that teachers will be more open to use more of these ICT tools, will be more guiders, facilitators, and moderators. Everything will be more flexible and more be teaching. This will be what will be the challenge for the next decades. But blended and be teaching will be based on three important aspects: the use of ICT tools and new methodologies, to teach how to learn because most of the contents are available, and the most important thing is to teach how to learn. I remember by myself that in more than 50 years of student of all my life, I have I've taken a graduation, 2 master degrees and a PhD, and a lot of things have been taught to me, but no one taught me the method of learning and the process. Another thing very important will be teach how to manage large quantities of information, because today we have all the information available whenever we want in a very fast and easy way. But it is important to know how to select quality information. So Necessary skills are, beside to be an expert in a specific scientific area, teachers should be prepared to know to prepare and to present their contents in multimedia format, in tutoring and presence and online, formative continuous assessment, and as well know how to use LMS and know how to use virtual classrooms if working at distance, and some other tools and methods. These are, let's say, an important evolution for the teaching process and the teaching methods of working. But we have, let's say, the tendency about political evolution and scenarios. And when we talk about this, what we can listen from our parliaments, it is just this about political debates and evolutions: number of students per class, number of hours per week, number of years before retiring, examinations and certificates are a challenge, formative assessment, obligatory and recommended skills, publics and private institutions, which would be public and which would be private. These are what we can see about discussion in the parliaments, and it's more, let's say, a trade union debate than lines for improving the quality of teaching and learning. But if we want to reflect about the quantic scenario, what is in front of us? But if we want to reflect about 100 years in front of us, we have an enormous challenge in front of us. And this is global warming. The evolution of our planet is really in danger. In about 100 years before, an enormous amount of ice was disappearing. And in the phase one, let's say in the first 20 years, it will happen justly raining and special storms and warming periods and floods and tsunamis, not much more than that. But with the polar melting, the ozone belt changing, and the dangerous cosmic radiation will start to hit our planet. Let's say that in about between 30 and 50 years, temperatures can rise up till 70 Celsius, which is not possible for human being live in a normal way. It means that summertime the poles will be totally melted, and in winter times temperatures will go in average up till minus 45 Celsius. The climate will be changed drastically, and it will be an enormous warming of temperature in front of us. But do not worry about education, because if things will run like this, there will be no education at all in 100 years. But if you want to change this, so don't use plastic bags. Teach your students for using other process. Separate organic from inorganic garbage. Organic can be fertilizer and inorganic can be transforming. If nothing will be done in 50 years, there will not be more than plastic bags in ocean and no fishes. Don't destroy the forest. Each 30 trees can produce all the oxygen you need during your lifetime. The public transport is avoid about CO2, and the production of pollution will be enormous. If nothing will be done in 50 years, it will not have clear water in the rivers and in the nature. So, if you want to teach in 100 years from now, before that, teach your students to take care of the planet and the global warming. Thank you very much for your attention.